Hello everyone, I'm here today with Chad from Premier Farm and Home. He's our fertilizer supplier, so everything we get and put on your yard, we get it from Chad. He's also one of the great people we go to for information when we have an issue, and he's done a lot of great stuff for us in the past. So today I wanted to just ask him a few questions, some stuff that we get a lot of questions from you guys, and some of these questions that Chad can answer for us is a real easy way to do it. So Chad, can you give us a little background on how you came into this business and
Yeah, sure. So I started out, when I was a kid, working for Lake Shawnee out there and doing some maintenance and some activities like that. Kind of found I had a knack for for working in yards and doing that sort of thing. So I went to Kansas State University. Went there for landscape and turf management. Right out of school, I was recruited by a company in Manhattan and worked for them for about a year or so, and then moved into the supplier side of the business. So what we do is we kind of help support companies and just offer information and help them build their lawn care programs and just kind of offer them some support as far as that goes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how Chad and I met, and we met at K-State. So
Yep.
known him for a long time and trust him a lot with everything that he has to tell us and to tell you. So what I wanted to talk to you today about was turf care programs.
Mm-hmm.
We offer a basic turf care program with 4 applications.
Yep.
And then we have our expanded offerings, which depend on different things that happen throughout the year in their yard.
Right.
What is the importance of having a turf care program, and why should somebody consider doing it rather than just going to Lowe's and buying just pre-emergent or
Sure.
just winterizer? They need to have a consistent lawn care program to create that nice turf look.
Well, right. A lot of times there's a lot of investment that goes into your yard, and keeping that yard nice is really important. And one way to do that is to have a good turf care program. And a good turf care program includes some things that when you're thinking about stuff, so yeah, they'll be out there in the spring, they'll be out there when you might have some weed issues, those sorts of things. But a good turf care program will also do things in the fall when maybe you're not as excited about going out and putting fertilizer down. Well, the Condre and Young boys will definitely be out there putting it down when it needs to be put down. And what that does is help thicken your turf, help prevent weeds and other things from getting into your turf, and it really helps with the overall cultural control of a lot of issues. So if you've got a really good root system built up from good fall fertilization practices, all of a sudden, your yard looks good in the spring no matter what, and it's very resistant to getting weeds and that sort of thing into it.
Yeah, we always push that at least do those 4 applications, and that will help your turf immensely throughout the year and into the oncoming years. So
100% agree with that. Yep.
this year we've had quite a mild winter. We
Yes.
had that real cold streak in December, but for the most part it's been pretty mild. Going into spring, what are some things that we might have to look out for when it comes to, as the grass starts coming back and regenerating growth?
So when you have a mild winter like that, a lot of times you get a longer germination period of winter annuals. So you'll see things like henbit and chickweed start popping up in the yard. That's nothing to be too alarmed about, especially those who have just seeded or just come through that sort of situation. You're going to have these annuals that maybe would have been a little less had that temperature, that thermostat shut off that germination. So expect to see a little bit more density of that. Remember, those are not something that's permanent. They're going to come by and take care of those in that May time frame, spraying some broadleaf herbicide and clean them up. And then the next year when you fall in the program, your turf's going to be thick enough you're not going to have to worry about them again. But you will see greater winter annual pressure than you've seen in the past.
Okay, that's good.
Yep.
So, in your opinion, if you were to have one application that you would do per year, what would that one fertilizer or spray application be for the year?
Definitely in September. So I think somewhere in that September-October time frame is a very critical time for your grass. That's when it's able to store food faster than we use it up. The whole rest of the year, Matt, we just sit out there and that turf grows up and we just chop it right off. And what happens is that's a net loss to the plant. They never actually gain any food storage or any root reserve. So if you're able to fertilize it heavily in the fall, that's a big bonus for the whole rest of the season. That can make your whole rest of your year. Right. So if there's one to do, that's the time to do it.
Good, good. So a lot of people, we see a lot of ads on TV about going to your local box stores such as Lowe's and Home Depot, and there's not necessarily always the right information there. And one of the things I always pick up from it is fertilizer enough? Or is there, I mean, if I just went to Lowe's and bought a bag of fertilizer, is that enough for my yard?
Well, Matt, it depends. It depends on the product. It depends on the strength of the product. It depends on the advice you get and the timing. And a lot of times those timings are marketed across many different parts of the United States that may have different timings or different applications than we want, or different strengths work in their environment than ours. And none of that's relayed to you in a box store. So the important thing is really regional to us, making sure we get exactly what we need for our area. And I think that's the biggest thing that we provide. The second thing we provide is we know the difference. So if you come in and you think you might need this, we'll be able to tell you for sure you need that, or maybe you should wait or do something different. And if you go just fertilizer and just grabbing those, let's say for example, I'm going to go off the shelf and grab the first crabgrass preventer I see. You may note that strength of that chemical in there may be half, a third of what ours would be for a season-long stuff, especially for what they're going to use. They're going to use a commercial strength product out there, could be as much as 4 times stronger than what they're using. So you run into that a lot as well.
Yeah. We see that a lot with the national type companies where they'll come to you and bid 6, 7 applications throughout the year. But in fact, you're getting the same amount as what we're putting down in the 4 applications, because we're not watering it down or not putting an extra inert material in it to basically does nothing for you. So
they just want the apps. Exactly. They want to charge you for being out there. Yep.
So one thing that we get a lot of phone calls on is fungus. Last year especially, we had a lot of rain, and then it got real hot and humid. What are some things that we can do as our clients can do, or that we could do as Condrey and Young to help alleviate the problem of funguses appearing, or is there any way to make it so it doesn't happen?
So one thing to know about fungus is when it does show up, it's going to be a very specific set of conditions. So as soon as those conditions are there, that fungus is going to arrive. Now there are a couple things we can do to try to make our host a little bit more resistant. There isn't really anything you can do about the pathogen. Brown patch is going to be out there. There's no way to get around that. There's nothing you can do. So some good advice might be to work on the host a little bit. So a good way to do that is to make sure, again, we had coming through a really good fall fertilized deal. We have a good deep root system to help grow through this disease and those problems. And also just dealing with some of those environmental things that we control, like irrigation. 9 times out of 10, it's our irrigation practices, something that you're not always in control of, I'm not always in control of, that you control at home, can really impact that. So we want to see that deeper and frequent irrigation. Trying to do it on the morning when the dew would naturally already be on there can really help. Trying not to extend leaf wetness long into the evenings. Some of those things can dramatically reduce fungus just on its face. We can also go after the pathogen itself. We can put down a fungicide. So if you contact Condrey and Young and say, I'd like to be on a preventative program, they use a fantastic one. I think you're using Armada, which gives you a 28-day interval. There's nothing like that you can find in a box store or anything like that. And by putting that 28-day interval down, it gives you a whole month of just, you don't have to worry about it. And I really, really like that. Now, at the end of that is when a lot of people run into it, they're like, what happened? And it blows up on you because you forget when you put it down. So just make sure you keep good records as to when you're doing the preventatives and looking for that interval as far as that goes. One other thing you can do as you go through is just really, again, airflow is really important to reduce fungus. So again, reducing that leaf wetness. So if you have, maybe some really thick shrubs that are blocking the south side, maybe have them come out and trim those up a little bit to let some more airflow in there. Or maybe, there's not enough sunlight getting into the area to dry it out. Also being able to do that and kind of evaporate some of that water can help. And that's really some of the fundamentals that you can do.
It's good. I didn't know anything about pruning shrubs, so that's good. Thanks for that. Sorry about the noise. This is a working warehouse, so these guys are busy today, so I appreciate Chad doing that.
No problem.
A couple more questions. One of them is shady areas. We run into this a lot because, especially in older neighborhoods in Topeka, where the trees have been there for years, and now they're fully grown. They shade the area a lot, and it just seems like I get it every year.
Yes.
How can I grow grass here?
Yeah.
What could a homeowner do, or what could we do to help them to get that area to grow better?
So one of the first things you need to start out with is realistic expectations. If you don't have 4 hours of direct sunlight coming in the morning underneath that canopy, or somehow getting through on the side or reflecting off the house, it's not a sustainable area where you can grow grass. Meaning you're going to be able to grow it, but it's not going to be able to amount to enough reserve to then perpetually go back year after year. You may get a year, 2, but you just see this slow decline in turf. And all of that's built just in those little months in the fall when you don't have the leaves on them. So one thing you can do now is make sure those leaves are totally off there and totally cleaned up, especially having them do the leaf cleanups and stuff in the fall and keeping those leaves off there. That helps it produce as much food as possible to combat those trees the next season. Also, when you provide fertilizer, providing with organics, I think you guys have been doing some of that. And organics release kind of metered out slowly over time. And in doing so, the tree can't just suck it all up in one shot. Right. The other thing to remember is when you're irrigating those areas that, trees and turf in combination require more water than just turf alone or just a tree alone. So, upping the amount of water that you need in those zones can really help you. The third thing you do is obviously thin out the tree. I think that's a huge, huge part of it. Once, filtered sunlight does not count, so it really needs to get direct little shots of sunlight down there. Once it passes through the tree leaf, it robs the wavelength for food and it's no good. So we really need to make sure that light's getting down to the surface and being able to make that. If you think about leaves like a solar panel, trying to keep the turf mowed higher underneath trees and in shady situations, maybe not mow it as aggressively, and especially don't mow it when it's wet. A lot of times in shady areas, it gets really wet and it stays wet longer, and we're trying to put more water on it, and then we get out and we might mow, and we all understand it's the real world. We got to get it mowed. We got to do those sorts of things. But if you can avoid it and try and do it in the afternoon rather than the morning, those are some things that keep that compaction in that soil beneficial for the turf to succeed.
So maybe even aerating on a normal, regular
Absolutely.
basis under a tree would help out with some of that compaction.
In aeration in combination with that organic matter. Aeration, organic matter. The other thing that we can do is if we just can't do it and it's just not working under there, have them skip the pre-emergent in the shady areas and just constantly be seeding. So every season, have them broadcast out, 2 to 3 pounds of seed. What happens is that seed germinates, it comes up, produces something, it doesn't survive the competition, and then the next round comes up, but at least you're having some perpetual something there.
That's a good idea.
Yep.
So last question, and this one, I think everybody deals with it, and it's moles.
Yes.
Why? We get it every year, and I know you get it a lot too. And
yeah.
For me, I don't think you can ever totally get rid of them.
Yeah.
But what can somebody do to try and reduce the amount of mold damage they're going to have in their yard?
So treating molds is expensive. That's just full disclaimer. If you're going to have somebody trap them, or if you're going to have to go bait them, or if you're going to use some of these repellents, especially a repellent that's going to work, is going to cost a pretty good amount of money. One of the new things that we've seen is using a commercial version of this. It's a mole repellent that's bonded to peanut hulls. It uses a lot of essential oils and all kinds of stuff that just messes with their senses and they move on. That seems to be the most long-lasting product that we've got out there. The disadvantage to it is, again, the price. So there's that option, done twice a year. Seems to do a pretty good job. And what you can do is you can keep them out of your flower beds, and you can keep them out of your nice area in the front lawn, and then maybe that backyard we don't worry about so much. So trying to keep them out of the area they want to be is a good thing. Also, if there's a significant activity in an area, we can try baiting or trapping them. There are some perils to that. It's a lot of work. Right. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Baits are great if you need to get a lot of sites done at one time. Traps are good to kind of narrow down the ones below, but sometimes it seems like they're endless and they don't go away. And when you're at that point, we're also going to combine everything, and we're going to do food supply as well. So food supply, we can use something to treat grubs in the area. Now, grubs aren't necessarily their food source, but it's one of their food sources, and it's an on-label use so that we can go for grubs and remove some of that food supply. But using some of those older school ones like 7, especially getting it watered in good, can really work on that food supply and also make it in. So if we put something down that they don't like to be around, don't like the taste of, irritates them, we've gone after them directly with traps, and we've worked on their food supply. All that together gets a really nice integrated program, and that's about your only way to just get them to move out. That's the end goal, is just to get them to move into a different location.
Great information. A lot of great stuff. I think everybody can use a lot of that information. I know I can, and I do this for a living. So, thanks for doing this with us.
Sure, anytime.
I know we're getting to that season, and right behind you is a ton of pre-emergent product. So if you guys aren't on our turf program and just want to do it yourself, come talk to Chad.
Sure.
He'll help you. He can basically tell you exactly what to do, when to do it. He's got the materials. And also, if you are on our turf program, a lot of that's going to go on your yard. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime.
Do you have any specials coming up or anything like
I mean, really, you just went over pre-emergence is going to be big here coming up, so that's what we're all geared up for. So just making good decisions with our pre-emergence. I think getting a nice one. If you want to have these guys get out there and get fired up and do it, they're going to be doing that here shortly. If you want to do it yourself, we're an option. So we just appreciate your business and appreciate the customer at home at business as well.
Perfect.
So, yep.
Well, thanks, Chad.
Matt, appreciate it very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's it for this edition, and we'll have more to come. I'm sure we'll see him again throughout the summer when some of these issues that we even talked about today pop up. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.